Okay, so basically the idea is that you want to lay out all of your squares, kind of make adjustments. If you're doing just a 2-color, then you pretty much can get an idea, but I think still to see it laid out can be really, really helpful to know like how wide you want it to be versus how tall. Again, you can get it as close to standard size measurements as you want, but I don't really worry too much about that. I did have a lot left over here of the colored fabrics because I didn't buy enough of the white to continue with this pattern, so this is as big as I can make it with the amount of white that I have, and it's still a pretty good size. It honestly might cover my queen size bed, so I just bought too much of the colored fabrics, it looks like, but yeah. So at this point, now that it's all laid out, I'm going to gather up the strips in rows and mark which row it is to keep it all laid out, and make sure you take a picture with your phone of the completed layout just so you have something to reference in case you get confused later on, especially if you're doing something that's got more colors in it than just an alternate 2-color square scheme, which is kind of like the basic scheme that you can do. So make sure you take a picture of it so that you kind of know what it's supposed to look like later on in case you get stuck and are confused about what row you're on. So I'm going to gather up from left to right the different rows, mark which row they are, maybe with a post-it or something, and then start sewing. So here where the whole quilt was laid out, I've now got it set up into rows. These are each of the rows. The first square on the top of the row is the far left square, and the bottom square in each stack is the last square in the row. So then I know which ones to sew together in what way and what direction. I'm going to put a post-it number marking the row number on top of each stack so that I know which one is which. And it's good to keep those post-its with you. Again, you can always refer to the picture that you have taken of it so you know for sure. But that's the idea in order to keep myself organized, is I'm going to put a post-it on top of each one, and then I know where I am. Hi, kitty. Now I have marked off all of my rows, and as you can see, I have 14. Yours may or may not have this many rows. It just depends on when you lay it out, how big you can make it with the fabric that you have and how big you want to make it. But that's how much mine ended up being. So I have 14 rows total. So for mine, I have 14 rows total, and each row is comprised of 12 squares. So I'm not sure, I haven't worked out the math yet to figure out what the standard size is that will come closest to being. Again, I don't really care, you probably shouldn't either. It's not a big deal, especially if this is your first quilt. But if for some reason you do want it to be bigger, you can always try to go back out and purchase more fabric, cut more squares. I recommend having all of the pieces cut, everything in place ready before you start sewing. It can be a bear of a project to get that going, but highly recommended and worth it in the end. Again, sorry about all this crap that's hanging out in my living room. If you didn't already know, I just moved a little under a month ago, so that's what all this stuff is in here. But yeah, 14 rows and 12 columns left to right. So let's get started.